Welcome to another episode of the Career Musician Podcast. My name is Michael Nomad Rapole, and I am so excited to bring you an amazing interview with Bernie Boyle, tour manager to the Stars. What do John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers, the Beatles, Paul McCartney, and Michael Jackson have in common? Well, they all call Bernie their buddy.
We are here at Nomad's place in South Africa, Johannesburg, and I'm sitting here with an amazingly accomplished tour manager, Mr. Bernie Boyle. Bernie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's glad to be here. I'd like to say hello to all the fans out there. And right. I don't know about amazingly this or anything else. I'm just an old guy that managed to hang on.
Well, you've done an amazing job at that, to say the least. So for those of us who may not know, give us an idea of just a little bit of your history and who you have worked with in the past.
I got started in this business in its infancy in the early 60s as a 17-year-old when I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. And I had a job. In those days, you left school at 16 and you went out and you got yourself a job. And I was on the train every day going to work, and I met another young fella, and he said to me, we got talking because we saw each other every day, and he said, what do you do for lunch? And I said, I don't do anything. He says, well, you know what? I know this club where they have bands that play at lunchtime. He said, why don't you meet me and I'll take you down there? This is in Liverpool where I was raised. And I go down there, and this club was in a disused warehouse that they used in the old days for storing goods that came off the boats, the cargo ships that always docked at Liverpool. It had been cleared out, and I walked in there, pitch black, couldn't see your hand in front of your face, and I heard this band playing called the Big Three. And it was playing a song by the Shirelles called Boys. And I always remember it because the Shirelles had a huge hit with Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? So I said to myself, my God, this is fantastic. And you could buy a cup of tea in there and a hot dog. So I stayed for 50 minutes at the set, and then I had to get back to work. We only had 1 hour of lunch. And I saw the guy on his train the next day, and I said, man, that was fantastic yesterday. He says, I'll take you to another place. He said, even better, you like it better. So he takes me down to a place called the Cavern. So I walk into the Cavern, and there's a band up there playing called Derry and the Juniors. There was a horn section in the band. I'd never seen anything like that up close. And they came out in a smart red jacket, and they did all kinds of stuff. And I thought, damn, this is fantastic. So about a week goes by, and the guy says to me, let's go back down to the Cavern again. So I walk in, and I see 4 guys up there dressed in all black leather pants, leather jacket, and they were called the Beatles. So I thought to myself, my God, these guys are fantastic. I really thought that they were it. I don't know why. They were playing tunes that I liked by people like Fats Domino, and Chuck Berry, and Little Richard, and all these kind of artists. So one thing led to another, and I got to know them. I was a really cheeky kid, and so I ingratiated myself with the band one way or another. And I started humping in the gear in and out of the Cavern, became like a general gopher. And then I went to Germany with them as a gopher to the Star Club in Hamburg, and that was in 62. And then when I came back, the manager, Brian Epstein, gave me a job in his store. I worked in the basement. They had a record bar down there, and he used to run a dance hall in another town called Widnes on a Monday night. And he used to have me run up and down there, putting up posters on lampposts and telegraph poles. And then I'd go up there and take the tickets and run the lights and all kinds of stuff. I was just a general dog's body. And then when the Beatles used to play this show, I used to stand outside, and I had a bag like you got from a grocery store, and it was full of postcard-sized pictures of the 4 of them in those Nero jackets. It's a famous picture. You still see it today. Wow. And they signed all of them, autographed them all. I used to give them to people coming out saying, here, give them 1 each. And by the end of the night, I still have this bag left over. And I thought, this bag's too heavy for me to be carting around. I'm going to the pub to have a couple of drinks. So I would find a trash can and throw the rest in there. No. So, of course, if I still had those bags today, I wouldn't be on the road right now with Babyface. I'd be retired now, living next door to Babyface. But anyway, that's how I got started in this business.
As you can see, it takes more than just dreams. Initiative, Determination, motivation, all key factors in staying in this game for the long haul.
They went on to be famous, and I was a kid, and I didn't have the wherewithal to carry on what I was doing. And then about 5 years later, I was doing a job, and I got to know this guy, and he said to me, hey, he said, you know about bands and setting up the equipment, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, there's a guy, John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers.
Oh, yeah.
We need a guy lifting the organ. He had a B3 organ, and we had 2 poles that went through it, and I'd get on the back end of it, and the heavy end, and lift it up and down staircases, and we had a little transit van, and we would fill it up with the gear, and then every night I would go up there and play all these clubs and set up the gear, the drum kits.
Fortitude. Stick with it, kid. We'll take you straight to the bottom. We've all heard that one before, or some semblance thereof. Let's hear Bernie talk about the next phase of his career.
So anyway, that's how I got started in the business.
Okay.
And of course, it went on from there. And then with Mayall, he came to America, and then he brought me over here, and I got promoted to be the road manager, which didn't really mean much, except I got more money.
Well, that's a good thing.
Which was a good thing.
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another, and I was with him until 73. Then in 73, I went off and did some work with Cat Stevens. And then I went on the road with the Electric Light Orchestra from 73 to 79, with the Tubes from 79 till around 84. Then it all started to meld into other things. After the Tubes, I went on the road with Air Supply, I think.
Oh,
in
wow.
the 80s when they were big. And then I went on the road with Bonnie Raitt. And then I went on the road with Joe Satriani and Black Sabbath. I did Michael Jackson in 96, 97, and 99. Into the 2000s, I was out with Paul McCartney in 2004, 2005.
So you circled back. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was funny because where the O2 is in London now,
Yeah.
that dome that is there was the biggest indoor dome in the world. And so we went into rehearsals because McCartney was playing stadiums. So we erected the show in there. It was big enough. This place was huge. Yeah. The first day Paul shows up at rehearsals, one of the guys I was working with says, hey, I'll introduce you to Paul. So I go over and I shake hands with him. So he says, oh, Paul, this is the new tour manager, Bernie, And he shakes hands with me and he says, I know you. Now, I hadn't seen him in at least 25 years. That night, when he was leaving, I could see him looking at me, and he was working on it, thinking to himself, I know this guy, you see. So the next day, where we had these offices and dressing rooms was like, to get to where the stage was, you had to go in a golf cart.
Oh, right.
Too far to walk.
Sure.
So Paul's in his dressing room. The guy that introduced me to Paul says, hey, he says, Paul said to me, Bernie's from Liverpool, right? And the guy says, yeah. He says, that isn't our Bernie that came to Hamburg, is it? And so this guy says to me, well, are you? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I am. So he jumps up and he goes back into the dressing room and he tells McCartney. Well, McCartney comes out and he looks at me and he says, I fucking well knew that was you, he said. He said, you come in here. He said, when I said I knew you and you said, oh, yeah, you're being Mr. Cool. And he grabs me round the neck and he's telling everybody, I've known him since he was 17 years old.
Wow.
So then what happens was everywhere we go, he would tell people, I've known him since he was 17. So I've known him since he was 17.
Oh, humility. Feels good to know that people recognize you even when you're not jumping up and down, saying, look at me, look at me.
And then we had something happen out there, and I made it right. I can't remember what it was.
You're good at that, by the way.
And so
you do that well.
so one of the guys said, yeah, well, Bernie, oh, yeah, he's a good guy. And Paul immediately said, well, yeah, he learned from the best. Took full credit for it. He took full credit,
That, Bernie, that story
So that's kind of like, and here I am, still plugging away.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You answered 3 of my questions just in this whole scenario. I love it, man.
But that's just a bit of a long-winded way of what I've been doing. I mean, I've encapsulated like 45 years of being on the road, you know.
So speaking of which, it's said that principles remain the same, methods change, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about that, because you, like you said, the past 45 years, you've seen the business go morph through all these different changes.
Yeah,
so how do you,
I'd like to say it's changed for the better.
Okay.
But it hasn't.
Right.
I was very fortunate to be born at a time and get into this industry when it was at its finest.
Yeah.
And it'll never be repeated. Believe me, it won't. Everything's fragmented. The heart and soul of what made the 60s so great and the 70s so great is long gone. That feeling's not around anymore. More people with less talent have got bigger egos. There's not that family spirit. There's not that camaraderie where people are kind of looking out for each other. That old, for want of a better expression, that old San Francisco hippie type vibe,
Right.
I remember doing shows at the Fillmore East and the Fillmore West back in the late 60s, early 70s. You'd walk in and everybody was smoking weed, and everybody was having a good time, and the authorities didn't give a shit, everybody was all heads together. And in those days, music was a catalyst that brought kids together that were they had long hair, they had a different way of looking at things, they were anti the Vietnam War, they were very liberal minded. They could they'd all be in a room watching a band together, and they were all simpatico with each other. That doesn't happen today.
Thing, yeah.
Of course, what happened there was with the advent of the Beatles and the British invasion or whatever, it then morphed into books and movies and fashion, and youth had a voice after the Second World War that it hadn't had in the, because even in America, even in the 60s and into the 70s, there was still a very reticent point of view as far as youth was concerned. They're young, what do they know? And they know nothing. They're all wet behind the ears.
Right.
And to a certain degree, it was true. But at least the youth movement got woken up. Taking that a step further to where we are today, I don't know if we're leaving the world in a better place. But in terms of the music business, when it really started to go sour was when business managers got in, bean counters showed up.
The suits.
That was it. Well, the suits were okay when you were talking about agents and managers.
Okay.
But what happened was when you got the bean counters in, they sucked the lifeblood out of it. You can't do this, you can't do that. What's the bottom line?
The bottom line was
always
more
the bottom line than the show, and it was more important than the artistic way people did things and all the rest of it. And then, of course, that manifested itself across the board in show business, whether it was in TV, whether it was in the theater, whether it was in movies. And it was all about getting sponsorships and what did you sell at the box office and to this day, it's all about the bottom line. All about the bottom line. How much light, sound, video content. And I mean, it's all well and good having all this stuff, but at the end of the day, are the fans getting any better of a show because of all the razzmatazz when it's actually 4 guys on stage or 5 guys, however many it might be, putting on a show which is the human element of it and putting their heart and soul into it. And there used to be a saying in the old days when you would be in the theatre, that when you were on the theatre, right at the very front, there was a set of lights on the floor. They used to call them the footlights, right, in the theatre. And your job was to project over those footlights into the audience. So the people at the back of the hall, I'm talking about the theatre now on Broadway, so they could hear you.
Okay.
So that was the deal. Excellent. You're on stage and you've got to project over the footlights into the back of the hall. That was the criteria. And we had it with bands in the the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. But now everybody's got to top each other and all the rest of it. We've lost that. The band gets up on stage and they play, and because of all the razzmatazz, I think that you're losing the pure essence of people performing. And it's a shame.
Bring back the music. Let the old school style of performing still abound in every show that you do.
So it's a different world. It's a different world, And the young people today don't know any different, so they think that is
That's what becomes status quo now.
Precisely.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. So listen, I'm only going to ask you two quick more questions.
Yeah.
Tour essentials. When you're on tour, I know there's a handful of things that are really important to me. One of them I'll just use as an example. I love the fact that you do bag call. Mm-hmm. Not all the tour managers these days still do bag call. Mm. Now, is it because I'm prissy or spoiled? No, it's actually because I'm carrying a guitar, I'm carrying my backpack, I might be carrying something else, a computer or something, and then to carry my bag as well. It's like, wow, that's a hassle. When you do bag call and then you check it in at the airport all together, that's quite a relief for me. So what are some of the tour essentials that you believe in? And
just take that one thing for instance. You used to be able to do that all the time. You can't do it you can't do it anymore because in the States, you go to the airport, you got to check your own bags in. You got to go through security. Yeah. I used to be able to go to the airport with all the bags, all the airline tickets, go there, check everybody in, get the boarding cards, wait on the sidewalk. The van shows up, boom, boom, boom. Gates open. You can't do that anymore. You've got to have ID. Right. The face on the ID's got to match the ticket. Right. You've got to go through security. Right. They want to open the bag. Who packed the bag? What do I know? Right. I'm stuck there with 14 bags. In the old days, when I was on the road with John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers, we used to have, we'd carry our stuff with us when we were flying from city to city. I could go in there, slip a sky cap, $50. He'd check in all my luggage, check in all the band's equipment. 3 guitars.
Talking about 25, 30, 40 pieces?
Not that many, but, certainly over a dozen or more. Plus the personal luggage. You go to airlines today, they won't take your bag if it's 3 kilos overweight. So those essential things, you try to do what you can. You come here, it's a different country, they've got different ways of doing things. Yeah. You try to make it, my aim is to try and make things run smoothly. And you do the best you possibly can with it. Doesn't always work out. Right. There are bumps in the road. Tomorrow we're going to leave. We're going to fly internationally. Tomorrow you're going to have to stand there with your passport and the ticket and say, which are my bags? Those 2 are going to Los Angeles, or those 2 are going to go to Cleveland. Right. That's right. So those sort of things, you can't really do it. Yeah. But when you can, it's good to be able to do. Now, if you're on a bus, doing a bus tour, then I can go, hey, my bag call is at whatever time it is, and get the bags in the downstairs, and then I load them on the bus. Right. Then you can do it.
That's a lot easier.
But it's a lot easier to do. But you can't be doing stuff like that. Modern technology, in some ways, has helped. I always like to put a day sheet underneath the door, but now people like to get them emailed to them.
Right. But day sheets are still nice, though.
But I still do the day sheet because I don't know if the guy has got no cell service, his batteries run out, or whatever. And the other thing is with that is that the last thing I want to hear from some guy who's late in the lobby, hey man, I didn't get my day sheet. Well, bullshit, you did, because I stuck it underneath your door. So he can't tell me no, he didn't get it. And I do it personally. I know lots of tour managers. They give it to the bellman and they say, here's $10. Go in. And I say to them, well, how do you know that got underneath the door? And you know what their answer is? They tell me, well, I got mine. But that doesn't guarantee everybody goes through. What happens if he, by accident, slipped 2 under one door? Sure. You've got to do it yourself. Right. It's called ass covering. So that nobody can stand down and say, well, hey, man, I didn't get it. Yes, you did get it because I put it there.
Ah, the devil's in the details. Read your day sheet. Look at your itinerary. Remember, there's a lot of moving parts on tour. Do your part in making sure you show up when you're supposed to.
But it's good old-fashioned quality control, and that's what a manager does. Yeah. And we all know that creative types sometimes can be spacey, so it's important to have
sometimes.
Someone like you.
Sometimes.
I'm guilty. I ask you, hey, Bernie, what time are we doing?
You're being kind, aren't you? Sometimes.
Wow, so that's great. So listen, another thing being on the road, it's tough. We talked about it the other day at breakfast, health. What are some of the things that you do to try to keep your body, up to snuff out here on the road?
Well, years and years ago, I used to hammer it, like everybody else, and then wake up like death. But as I've gotten older now, I can't do that to my body because one of these days, if I do, I won't wake up at all, and somebody's going to say, "Did you hear about Bernie Boyle?" What? He died at the Holiday Inn. Well, I won't be at the Holiday Inn, but it'll be, he died.
The Four Seasons.
He died at the Ritz-Carlton in New York. and they'll put a plaque on the door.
But you eat
thank
well.
God. I do. I try to eat well. I've never been afraid to go to the doctor.
Okay, good.
I go for regular checkups. I get all the things you're supposed to do when you get to a certain age in life. I do all of those. I've had a couple of bumps in the road, health-wise, but I've got over those. And I'm here and, enjoying it. And I enjoy what I'm doing. That's another thing. And then there are days when I go, Jesus, this is a pain in the ass,
Right.
But what I like doing more than anything else, prior to a tour, putting the tour together, I get a real kick out of wheeling and dealing with people and the buzz of knowing what I want, getting the price that I want, negotiating, getting emails. I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I like to come down to my computer and see half a dozen emails that I've got to get on right away. And I'm not talking about emails from Amazon trying to sell me something.
You're talking about real legitimate business.
Business.
Emails, yeah.
And I still get a kick from that. And
awesome.
so they're the sort of the things that, and then you meet some great people along the way.
That's right.
You got, as far as traveling and going to great countries, without blowing my own trumpet, I've been to everywhere I want to go.
Yeah.
There's nowhere I haven't been and performed at various levels. And there are certain artists that I've worked with on the road I've got a deep affection for, and I would drop everything to go back on the road with them tomorrow if I thought it was going to be happening.
There's certainly nothing like a great sense of camaraderie out there on the road. Let's see what Bernie has to say to all those aspiring career musicians out there, gearing up for the next touring season.
Pearls or words of wisdom to, let's say, some of the younger generation musicians, crew people coming up who want to do this. What would you tell them?
See if you can go to plumbing school.
Besides that, Bernie. But that's a good one.
Because I never forget, there was a guy that called up the musicians union. He said, I need 6 musicians on Saturday night to do a wedding. How much is it going to cost me? The guy said, $7,500. He said, $7,500? He said, my God, that's so expensive. And the guy told me, he said, I'll tell you what to do. Call up the plumbers and see if you can get 6 guys to show up at your house at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. And whatever they're going to charge you, we'll do it for half. But what I would say to these kids today is if you're going to go out there and get in this business, you know what? Don't be kicking the can down the road. Check everything yourself. Dot all the I's, cross all the T's yourself. Do not take modern technology and go, I've got a checklist. I've got to send an email to the guitar player. And I've got to check one to the bass player. And when you send it, say, my job's done. Follow up on it. Make sure you get a reply. Make sure they got it, they understand, so there can be no screw-ups.
That's right.
You just got to follow everything. Just do not kick the can down the road and think you've done it. And don't delegate stuff to other people when you know you can do it yourself, just because you're being lazy. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Telltale sign, your email signature says, please let me know you received this.
Yes.
Please confirm receipt.
But I'm out here on the road with 4 lovely guys. They all reply.
Right.
As soon as and all you got to say is, got it.
Got it.
That's all I need. Got it. And then you can move on. And, and if you're on the road and you got a guy in the band that's a pain in your ass, you got to just pull him to one side and go down to his room and sit down with him and say, hey, listen, we're out here together, all trying to make a living. I'm trying to do the best I can. We've got to get over our problems here. You got to man up.
Right.
Be a man and sit down and talk about it. And you both got your point of views and a place where you want to get to. That's it,
That's it. Problem solved. Bernie Boyle, it has truly been a pleasure. And you, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. And a good jokester. I love it.
Well, you've got to have a little humor out here, otherwise you fucking shoot yourself.
That's right.
That's for damn sure.
Well, there you have it for this episode of the Career Musician Podcast with Mr. Bernie Boyle, tour manager to the stars. My name is Michael Nomad Rapole. Please be sure to like the Career Musician Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And when you get a moment, please leave a review on whichever platform you're listening to us on, iTunes, Podbean, etc. And don't be afraid to share this with all of your fellow musician friends and even hobbyists or just fans of music in general. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, Nomad signing off.